Hello, everyone. Thanks for coming today. We're about to discuss user experience or building the next generation of consumer crypto apps, UX, onboarding, and stickiness. And with me today, we've got Matt Szenics, Director of Magic Eden Foundation, Tim Chen, Global Head of Strategy at Mantle, Johnny Garcia, Head of Institutional Growth at VeChain Foundation, and Roshan Robert, CEO of OKX US. So, one of the first questions I wanted to ask, and for me, I think crypto UX has been this perpetual problem where it's been just abysmal. In the earliest days of Bitcoin, you didn't even have like a mnemonic, a 12-word backup. You had to print it out. You had to print out your private key. And so there's all these different eras that we've gone through in terms of user experience. And a question I have that I think is one of the most critical questions that covers this is, what are the aha moments in consumer crypto products where non-crypto folks finally understand the value? And I'll leave this open-ended so anyone can answer first.
I think it depends on which customer base or user base you're going after. So for us, the way we've done is we recently launched a crypto neobank money app. And so the way we think about it is, look, it looks like Revolut on the front end, DeFi abstracted away on the back end, one-click yield, et cetera. That's the vision. That's how we onboard the next billion users into crypto. Because I think, if you think about the S-curve, the first 15, 20% have already been onboarded through the likes of exchanges and trading apps. So you really have to make it, you have to find a wedge that gets into their behavior, something that they touch and feel and trust every day. So the next best, the best thing from like a familiarity, convenience, trust perspective is a banking or personal finance app. And so that's our wedge and go-to-market that we're building towards.
So kind of like a familiarity is where we help them cross the chasm.
Yeah, and I'd love to actually double-click on what you said, which is when we started, we have 12 words, 24-word seed phrase. We have, our private keys. And I remember when I started, I joined, Magic Eden like 3 years ago when the company was being founded, and I was using the product, and I didn't know how to, open up a wallet, and I didn't know like how to use it. And I'm like, if I'm getting into this, like I need to, like a user that knows nothing about crypto needs to be able to use this. And I mean, it's like 3 years later, we're not that far off from 3 years ago. It's actually a lot of the pain today still comes from folks that look at a wallet and they're like, oh, what is this thing, right? Like how do I open up this product and how do I engage with this app? They don't care about that. They just want to use the app. And so some of the stuff that we've done to move us along further along into what they actually want, which is to just experience the app, is we've built a wallet that doesn't feel like your typical wallet. We'll start with a Web3 wallet, your typical users are used to, but we're moving towards more embedded and a multi-chain experience that doesn't feel like you have to understand each chain to just get the asset and get the content that you actually want. Because at the end of the day, the aha moment from our perspective and what they see from our users is, oh, I got the content that I came here for, and I didn't have to learn about crypto. And because like once you start to try to teach somebody about crypto on the way to get their content, you just completely lose them. So yeah, I love that we're going into the direction of embedded wallets from Web3 wallets. I think that's where we're going to head to. And I love the idea of abstracting away all the crypto. I mean, we're all maxis here, but I think to really move the space forward and bring more users on chain, we got to get rid of crypto almost and redefine the user experiences that way.
Matt, I completely agree. And my approach here is usually quite simple. So I take sort of the spouse approach or the mom approach, right? Which maybe there's many folks in this audience that also do a similar item, right? And what do I mean by that is traditionally the way that I approach this is I literally look over to my wife who works in telecommunications, right? The sort of stodgy old industry that we certainly see the Titanic is quite quickly sinking on this one. But candidly, I won't let her know that. And when I say, hey, would you experiment a little bit with this wallet? She goes, no. Why? And why every time when I open this new application, it's not as user-friendly to me as these other applications. No, it says wallet, connect my wallet. Why would I do that? I'm like, well, why do you feel comfortable with Apple Wallet? Why do you feel comfortable with all these other wallets that you are actively sort of releasing your information without sovereignty? And for her, it's been decades and decades of building trust into the system. And so we don't have that luxury, right? We have to deliver a very seamless UX experience that is compatible with what they're doing currently, that is easy to use, and it abstracts away, as you said. And I know that's sort of this redundant term of sorts that we use quite often, but it abstracts away the crypto. And we've been doing that using a number of a combination of emerging technologies, right? So there's obviously the things that we know is generationally transformative technology, right? DLT and what you can do potentially with that. But also the combination of AI, the combination of incentivizing certain behavior. How do I re-engage with this audience on a frequent basis, multiple times throughout the day, without feeling like you're being got, right? And unfortunately, yeah, we've been saddled with this reputation that we have to do a little bit of self-policing with, and you're going to do that only through understanding the UX experience. So I completely agree with that.
Thanks, Dan. Well, you're asking a design question to a guy who couldn't find a nice T-shirt for an event like this. So to start with that. But OKX, the group as such, right? Like we have over 70 million customers. We have over 70 million customers in 180 different countries. So, there has been a brand awareness as far as OKX is concerned, and we've built that over the last 4 to 5 years, right? And that awareness is what then drives people to use the wallet, that drives people to use the system, that drives people to then start trading, right? So from a business perspective, I look at the entire value chain, front to back. And we recently launched here in the US in April of this year. And we're slowly building products and services for both the retail community as well as the institutional community, right? And as we start sort of the marketing campaigns and as we start building products and services, my point is, yes, there are multiple segments of customers. We have to know what those customers need and want, right? In general, you can say there's around 60 million customers in the US who understand crypto, who have some kind of exposure to crypto. And you have 100 million customers who I would say fall under the bracket of crypto curious, right? So there's a way in which we can design the systems and the processes and the UI, the user interfaces, to attract customers who are already in the market. But we have to change our strategy a little bit when you're looking at targeting those 100 million customers who want to get into crypto, but they don't know why they can, right? Or how they can. So I think it all starts with building brand awareness at the top of the funnel and ensuring that we have a consistent message when we go out. And I think that message is about, quote unquote, trust, reliability, and ensuring that we get that message across to the people.
I just want to add something to that, which is, I think most people here are of one cohort, which means that we are near or on a dollarized system. And if you're outside of that system, you don't understand how painful it is to onboard and on-ramp and off-ramp and potentially get debanked, especially living in Asia, LATAM, etc. And so for us, we hired a bunch of folks that are ex-Web2, looking at it from a first principles perspective. Who is our customer who has the biggest pain point, right? It's those who want to hedge against devaluation of the currency, then to save in like dollar-denominated treasury yield. Great, service them, right? And to your point, like the entry point is the bank, because if you look at that specific individual, 24 hours in a day, what do they spend the most time doing? How do we insert ourselves into that workflow? So that's kind of the approach. I think we're starting to see hopefully more Web2 talent move in this direction, because that's the way we need to be building for.
There was a kind of an answer that was echoed amongst all 4 panelists that I really liked, which was around being customer obsessed with the user experience that a customer feels when they use your product or protocol. You have to put yourself in their shoes. I remember the first time I heard Bitcoin, I thought it was magic internet money that was a scam for buying drugs. Like this is back in 2012, a long time ago, but most people feel really weird when they get approached with blockchain technology, right? So they're like, I don't know what a wallet is, what the hell is a private key, blockchain shit, I don't know what any of this is. John Oliver, a comedian, actually had a really funny skit on this a while back. I don't know if you guys remember this one, where he said, Bitcoin is everything you don't understand about money with everything you don't understand about computers. And that's how most people feel about crypto, is that's the general sentiment. I think it's funny that we try to explain crypto to people even though they have no idea how their microwave works. Most people don't know how their car works. They just press a button and they get it and they go use it. So I do think kind of being empathetic and value prop oriented is really how we push that forward, where it's like, what value am I delivering? And here's the button to press to get that value. So I feel like the whole panel is kind of echoing that, or basically saying the same thing there. So just want to say I really appreciated that. I want to throw this back to you guys, and this doesn't mean you enjoy this protocol or product, but what is an element of an onboarding, or like, for example, how a trade is placed at an exchange, or how a swap function works in a wallet? What is an element of not your own product or protocol, but a competitor's or someone else in the ecosystem that you really admire? Like, for example, maybe the onboarding flow is really simplistic and you loved how simple it was, or the swap button was really great. I just use those as examples, but if you could highlight your favorite, what you call like feature that does a really good job at UX or onboarding.
I'll go first because I love OKX's wallet. It's great. 2-second onboarding. I was like trying out different wallets, and I'm like, this is the wallet that we should sort of aspire to be like. So you guys are great at pushing the envelope for something that's like user friendly with however many millions of customers you have. And I think that's important. It's like people forget that these onboarding times have to be like really, really smooth, because once you sort of put up an experience that like puts up any kind of barrier, any kind of barrier, you're immediately lost like your typical user. So I think I admire the wallet. I think it's great, and I think we sort of operate on a lot of different chains with a lot of different like considerations. So it often feels like we have to build something that's a similar product across different chains that all work very differently, and continue to abstract away the experience. Which today I think we're getting farther along in, and I think the element to add on what Dan you were saying of paying attention to like the users and being value prop oriented. It actually just comes from just listening to the user. Our founders, myself, all the employees of Magic Eden, we're on Twitter, just like talking to users, and oftentimes just like get into DMs and ask them questions about how would you use this product, and like why do you hate it? And I think it starts with that. It's like it's pretty simple. It sounds pretty simple, but it's just like, man, you just got to talk to your users and sort of like try to build for them. So yeah, I think you guys are doing a great job.
You
Thank you
have to
for
say
that.
Magic Eden now.
Well, this is.
I teed you up.
I have to speak now, right?
But you can't say Magic Eden though. You got to say anything else.
Well, just to sort of really throw back to what you said, Dan, right? Like customer obsession, right? And that's important. And when I think the market belongs to those who can get the next 100 million customers, right? And the next 100 million customers are people who don't know anything about crypto, but who are the curious lot, right? And as the old saying goes, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change, right? How do you make them change the way they look at things, right? How do you make them change the way they look at crypto? How do you make them change the way they look at crypto when they look at the OKX app, when they look at the OKX website? And I think that's a branding question. That's about how we can ensure that, and our branding and marketing team under our chief marketing officer Haider, they do a phenomenal job in making sure that the brand is out there. The next stage of that is those customers will come in and start onboarding, and that's the point that Dan you were mentioning, right? When they start onboarding, there is that value chain, that customer onboarding cycle where each part of the design needs to be really, really put in place with a great deal of thought. And as we started launching here in the US, one of my biggest projects, and a project where I'm really, really focused on, is the idea about how is a customer going through that journey, right? Number one. And number two, as that customer goes through that journey, what are the problems that the customer is facing? And number three, as that customer goes through that journey, do we understand enough about the customer to then 6 months from now or a year from now be able to target marketing of our products to that customer, right? So in that sense, there's a lot we're learning, right? And I believe when you're starting a business, or a new product, the first 6 months to 1 year is all about learning about your customer. And you have to have a team and a set of people who are really obsessed about that and who really sort of go that full journey in understanding what that customer wants, right? And segmenting the customers. So across retail and institutional, we're starting to see around 20 to 25 different segments emerge, right? And we're just starting the journey, and that is an important piece of data that we can then convert into information and then convert that information into intel that we can use in future, right? And there's an interesting anecdote as well in these early days that I saw. As the customer was onboarding, we saw that there was a blip in the system where we were losing around 25 to 30% of customers because of the way one function was designed. The earlier you catch things like that, the better it is, because you're not spending millions of dollars of marketing funds on one side to then get customers into a funnel and to get that funnel clogged at that point, right? And that was interesting. We changed the design a little bit, and you could see that funnel improve, down to, from that 30% of clog to around 5% of clog, right? And I think that was a very important aha moment for us in this whole customer journey. And, there are certain other factors that we've seen as well where it's important to keep a customer engaged throughout that process. The more the customer is engaged throughout that process, and how you keep that customer engaged throughout that process is something our design engineers work.
I think this is a good stepping point, because our panel, we don't have too much time, and there's a point you brought up that I want to bring to the group here, which is around stickiness and retention. Because we've been talking about onboarding and user experience, but let's bring this topic to everybody here around retention. I think that was great that you brought that up. How do we think about building products that retain customers? How do we build repeatable patterns or habits within our products? I want to throw this question to the group again.
So I think the first step is actually, if you work on a protocol team, you'll realize like capturing data and around user, like whether it's CAC or LTV, it's like near impossible, right? It's very hard to get that data. That's where the magic lies when you're a Web 2 company and you're an app, because you know exactly who's coming in, how long they're staying. So from a retention perspective, I think the first and foremost is just designing a box that users can come in and interface with, and therefore you capture all the data, right? Which is why we built this neobank. It's like, before you had the Wild West of floppy disks going in and trying to run programs. Now we have, Windows or the App Store. Everything is a nice packaged one area. We understand all the retention metrics, churn metrics, et cetera. So I think it's from a infrastructure perspective how you think about the design.
Yeah, and what I'll add to that is I think all of our platforms are rich with like very specific data, trading data, user data, and it's all specific to our platforms. And a fun one is like, well, just because it's so topical nowadays, it's like, well, how do you leverage AI agent is one thing that we're thinking about pretty deeply. And I think like, I think every single company, S&P 500, every single like new startup is leveraging in some way. And we want to put it really, really upfront into the user experience. So we're thinking about, what does a AI-assisted trading tool look like? We have 8 million tokens on the wallet. We have all these sorts of long tail assets, NFTs, as much selection as somebody could want in Web3. But like, the user doesn't actually want that many tokens. It's like overwhelming, right? So how do you create signals for them, leveraging the tools that we have out there today, like AI-assisted agents? And what is like a trading bot that could pull these signals and give it to you in a very customized way? I think that's sort of like the next step of where we're going.
as the Bitcoin guy up here, maybe you have a button that says "Sell all and buy Bitcoin." Simplify. Yeah.
Yes. Actually, yes. No, yes. That's. I think that's what we want. This training, this trading bot, or trade. I'll call it a trading assistant, but it should be the first thing that you see because you don't want to be overwhelmed with too much choice. And today, there are millions of tokens out there. So yeah, why not create a trading assistant that says, hey, your tokens look like they went to zero. You want to just swap everything out for Bitcoin without even thinking about it? Great, you could do that on this wallet. Easy.
Yeah, Dan, so the one thing that I would add here is everything is downstream of the onboarding experience, right? So we spend a tremendous amount of time of making sure that we are highly tailored in to securing them in the first place, and then subsequently spending time on how do we have them be repeat customers. So once you've satisfied for the onboarding experience, then it's a matter of okay, who ultimately are my customers, right? So we've been spending a ton of time in the last year or so vis-a-vis VBetter as a platform for thematically bringing folks on to perform sustainable activities. So what does that mean, right? We've got a partnership with the UFC, for instance, some 900 million followers. That doesn't seem consistent with sustainability. Those folks look like they just want to show up and see people get punched in the face. That is accurate. However, there's an opportunity for incredibly established brands to leverage the platform to articulate their value propositions and continue to drive folks and re-engage folks to create a unique customer experience via VBetter. So we spend a lot of time, one, incubating and attracting applications or decentralized applications on the VBetter that are easy to use. Two, we leverage the components that we all have come to know and love, right? So in the form of governance, thinking about, hey, how do we leverage the power of this community to build brands, to build toward ideas and problems that we wish to collectively solve for, and then we allocate our voting to that, right? And then subsequently thereafter, you're rewarded based on the applications that bring you the most joy, that bring you the most happiness, whether that's your own personal physical fitness via our BYB application, or whether that's using reusable mugs as opposed to paper and plastic cups, as I've seen my colleague use on occasion when we're getting coffee from the coffee truck. Poo-poo on you, Anthony. But that's how we think about this, right? And then subsequently solving for, hey, how do we explain that value prop to the brand, right? So to UFC, how are we helping you either drive down the cost of customer acquisition or increase your engagement and retention with your existing clients?
And Roshan, since you brought up this topic, I want to let you have the final say on it about stickiness and retention.
Yes, stickiness and retention depends on a number of different reasons, right? Like it is especially in a market that like the US where we are entering for the first time. There's enough competition out there, right? So it's all about building products that are very customer centric, right? And easy to use for the customer. Now, there's the centralized exchange is a regulated market, right? And within a regulated market, there's a way in which we have to design products and services that are stand regulatory test, for example, right? Stand regulatory scrutiny. And in that sense, what we've done is we also have to build compliance systems, right? We have to build risk management systems. We have to build systems that govern client money, and of course, govern all the risks of the ecosystem, right? So when you bring all of that together, and then you design a customer journey that takes the customer through all of this, and in the end makes the customer trade, right? That is the challenge that all of us will have, and that's a challenge that we'll have to take on and make sure that we design it with such precision that it's something that the customer will trust. And if the customer trusts the system and trusts the products that we are delivering, then the customer can be retained.
And I want to throw one last question to the group because we've only got about 5 minutes left, and we'll start. We'll just start this way, make it easy. What is the biggest user experience or onboarding breakthrough that we need for mainstream adoption? Like, is there one critical thing that you can identify? And the answer could also be it's not just one thing, but I'd like for us to try to pick one thing that you think is the barrier for mainstream adoption?
Yeah. I mean, I'd love to talk about all the Bitcoin stuff that you'd love us to talk about, but I think I'll say my quip about Bitcoin real quick is why we're bullish on the Bitcoin ecosystem, and I think why a lot of us are is because it was the first, and there is only one Bitcoin. It is the first coin that was out there, and we are trying to build more on top of the Bitcoin ecosystem so that you could just do more than just hold it. And you saw that with ordinals, and you saw that with runes, and how we're investing into these experiences. And we're going to go deeper into that. And I know everybody here in this room is into Bitcoin, and I think the institutional crowd loves Bitcoin. And if you want more to do with your Bitcoin and add use cases, I think I mean, this retail flow that we talk about and is actually super important. And building new use cases for Bitcoin is very important. So I think we just need more Bitcoin builders, just generally, I'll say. But to answer your question specifically, I'm going to go back to what I said in the beginning, which is I think we're not there yet in terms of abstracting chains away, extracting crypto away. We build on Bitcoin, but we also build on Solana. We build on EVM. And that's like building 3 different companies at once. And how do you connect the two seamlessly for a user? How do you, present to them a product that's like a DApp mainly, but has all the elements of a wallet because that's a necessary step in the process, right? And I think the answer is in finding novel technologies to do that. A person should just come with their money and go buy the thing, and it doesn't matter if the money is on, is on Solana, or if the money's on VeChain, or if the money's on, wherever you got your money. It should act like money. So
it sounds like chain abstraction is kind of like the...
No, man, we got to push the envelope on chain abstraction. Yeah. I mean, 2 things: Bitcoin and Bitcoin DeFi, which we're going deep in, which I think will bring on more people who are fans, and then just continued chain abstraction on Bitcoin specifically too.
Awesome.
You need to find the fastest path to mass distribution. And the case in point, I'll play to the crowd given what the zeitgeist is digital asset treasuries. Why is it incredible? Because what's the alternative? You go to ETFs. If you've ever launched 40 Act products like I have, you realize it takes you 9 months to get this thing out of the gate. You can only charge 50 to 80 bips. You get 20 to 1,000 pieces by all the fees in the middle. And then it takes you 2 years to even list on Merrill Lynch or Wells Fargo, right? Whereas a DAT, 2 months, you take over a shell and boom, you're listed. Anybody who can buy stock that's traded on NASDAQ or wherever can buy you. So mass adoption, you have to figure out where most of the capital is and liquidity people are playing today, and just Trojan horse your way in the fastest way possible. So that's what I would say.
Dan, I'm going to offer a little bit of a cop out here. It's tough to point to one particular item because I think it does a disservice to all the other items that have evolved and taken place, right? I mean, we've been talking about account abstraction since I honestly, since I was probably in Pampers, and so candidly, it does very little in the form of giving it due justice as it relates to addressing the mnemonic stuff that we talked about, private keys and all that jazz. So I'm going to offer up a little bit of a cop-out answer here and say we need to do less positioning around our value proposition and more just building usable, easy applications that folks enjoy.
Yeah, I'm going to go a slightly different direction here. We're sitting here in the aftermath of the House passing the Genius Act, the Clarity Act, and the Anti-CBDC Surveillance Act. 3 huge and consequential pieces of legislation that have just, and one of which has been signed into law, right? The next generation of customers and the next, if the market cap of crypto, which is around 4 trillion, has got to go to 10, 15, 20 trillion, and if the market cap of stablecoins, which is right now at around 235 billion, and it's positioned to go to 2 trillion by 2028, which is not me saying it, but a paper from the Department of Treasury that says this, with the right kind of tailwinds, then We need to have nimble, efficient compliance and risk management systems to support that regulatory structure that is forming. And companies that implement these compliance and regulatory systems are the companies that are going to succeed in the future.
Appreciate all the final words, gentlemen. If the audience could applaud these panelists, thank you so much for coming up. Thank you guys for attending.